Alright, so far, things are claiming that they work, so only information I want. Alright, it totally is working. Welcome to the inaugural live stream direct to YouTube of the second account of New Cokes. Read it and weep, you Dale Hillians. Oh, what's happened? Okay, that's fine. Didn't change anything. Today, we'll be doing a little bit of critiquing, inspired by a comment that was left on the Charlie Kirk stream that I did. I'll just put the comment on the screen, so then we'll just read it, and then it never misrepresents his words. Angry Magma says he only got caught because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. We'd be here speculating about the shooter's identity now if not for him bragging about it. So is that true? I guess that's what they would want you to think at the FBI, where Cash Paddle is tripping over himself every time he tries to do anything. But this is a picture of Copterado Robinson. And if you look on the left, he's wearing essentially the exact same clothes, even the same hat and sunglasses. Is this from the day of the assassination or something? Or is he just that predictable? You can see that Copterado Robinson is wearing his everyday normal clothing, his everyday normal hat, his everyday normal sunglasses as he ascends the stairwell to the sniper's position, where he now infamously and very tragically violently removed another human being from this world. And literally no attempt at all to look like a different person in doing so. So let's see, going to image 2 is the little listing here. Hopefully, commentary on these points can keep us busy enough to have something. What is this top? It's like only top. You can only see the top ends. Okay, that's fine. Nobody knows that this is even so. There was no announcement made. There was no. There was no fanfare going into the inaugural live stream of the second New Cokes channel. Read it and weep, Dale Hillians. But this is the list that was compiled quite hastily this morning, and I think should just assist in guiding more elaborate insight as it comes up. Would Tyler Robinson have gotten away with murder? The context being he told his roommate he wanted to, quote, keep this a secret until he died of old age. So, as I mentioned last time, this is another one of these guys, another one of these, ooh, look at me, you're elite, you'll never catch me, EAR type, or Zodiac, and of course Zodiac was just most likely dumb lucky enough to actually have succeeded at that, mainly in the time period that he was offending. But this guy wants to be another Cobra. He was, oh, you're never going to catch me, going in. So let's review his behaviors, and then we'll understand why his name is Copterado Robinson. Mistake number 1 was leaving a note under his keyboard before he left his house. So think about this, guys. There's actually there's some points I missed on here, but I'll just go over it. He leaves his house where another person also lives. It's not just him living there. And I guess brings his rifle, brings his equipo, and before he leaves, he writes a handwritten note, which almost certainly has his DNA and fingerprints all over it, saying, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I am going to take it. Interestingly, actually, with that note that was left under the keyboard is that the the tense changes halfway through the sentence. So I think you're getting some insight into just how dumb Capturado really is here. I had the opportunity to check out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. Technically, it works as a sentence, but shouldn't it be like, and I took it? Anyway. So he left this note at his house. What's going to happen, and there's some scenarios that we're going to bring up as we talk about his exfiltration from the crime scene. If he becomes either disabled, distracted, or preoccupied with something that keeps him away from his ability to return to his house that same day. He's not home, roommate slash controversial significant other of great identity confusion shows up in his room looking for him. Okay, where the heck is Tyler Robinson? Do they share a room, or what's going on? Because they're supposedly romantic partners. So does the roommate live in the same room as Tyler Robinson? If so, that's even worse, because now they're going to lift up his keyboard, go, where did he go? Let's see if his... And they move his keyboard, and they go, oh, here's a note about killing Charlie Kirk. What are the odds? Okay, so ridiculous. So it's already, before he's left the house, he's already screwed himself over. Now, you could say, well, he's going to go back to his house and get that note, but ideally, yeah, but what happens if he can't? So you have to have bases covered, guys. Not to give instructions for Otro Personas Capturado endeavors and ambitions, but cover the bases here. That was not done. That was not done before he even left his house. In fact, it wasn't done the moment he put his hat and sunglasses on and wore the same Converse that he always wears. Okay, mistake number 2, and this ties into that. No disguise, barely concealed his appearance. You know what made the EAR successful for such a long period of time before he was eventually captured with DNA? The descriptions of the EAR were thwarted by disguises. And it's almost certainly the same with Zodiac. And everybody's, oh, he's not, oh, never. He's full of shit, he never wore a disguise. You think he's walking around Presidio, he looks like that for real? There's a reason why these guys, they have everybody looking for someone who can't look like you. If you're the EAR and you wear a shoulder-length, dirty blonde hair wig when you're prowling, there's no chance that you're a police officer with a military haircut. Because the police, unless of course you're wearing a wig, the police don't assume that the prowler's wearing a wig. So if you were prowling with a wig on, they're going to go off of what that description looks like. The guy's got, as if it's a good quality disguise, they're going to say, this guy has shoulder-length hair. He can't be a cop, because when we went over to his house yesterday, or here's a picture of him from 2 days before, and he has a buzz cut. So that can't be him. So this is the idea behind these types of disguises. You don't wear the exact same thing that you know. This is how you get caught. And we'll go into how that got him caught, too. Okay. Mistake number 3 was he never disabled or avoided nearby cameras before the offense. You guys think at Utah Valley University that there was someone watching the camera every day, every single camera, checking it every day to make sure it worked? Of course not. Like, almost certainly, of course not. And there was nothing stopping Capturado Robinson from going to UVU the day before. Day before would really be ideal, in a wig, right, with lifts in his shoes or something, and going around to the cameras that are going to see his sniper position and spray painting him or something. Wouldn't even require even a BB gun or spray paint. Disabled, no camera. And you really think that someone at UVU is going to be like, oh, interesting, camera 3 hasn't functioned in the last 10 hours. Of course not. So this guy has no preparation. All right. Used a recognizable rifle known to members of his family, then failed to retrieve it. Okay, his grandpa gave his dad a bolt-action rifle. His dad gave his son the bolt-action rifle. There's already 2 other people in the family who guaranteed have seen this rifle, in fact, handled it themselves, probably fired it. Then you have to factor in all the other people that Tyler Robinson probably showed this rifle to, and I'm sure it was tons of people because his mom knew about it, His roommate knew that he was, quote, engraving bullets, so obviously the roommate knows about it. And the fact that he's engraving bullets and then telling people about it leads me to believe that almost everybody in his social circle has seen this firearm. There's photos of him with other firearms. He's known to be a firearms culture. So, Captain Otto Robinson, in his infinite wisdom, travels to the site of a world-famous assassination and brings a rifle that everybody who knows him has seen. Brilliant. Mistake 5. He left his DNA on the trigger of the murder weapon. I mean, the intensity of that statement, the degree to which that statement guarantees that this guy is done for, cannot be overstated. We'll read it again for emphatic dramatic effect. He left his DNA on the trigger of the murder weapon. Okay? And then he left the murder weapon at the scene. Okay, brilliant. It's not just Tyler Robinson's mucho comentario that gets him capturado. It's Tyler Robinson's entire everything. This is the if he intended to keep this a secret, he's doing a terrible job. Okay, mistake 6. Left his DNA on a screwdriver at the sniper's position. So let's follow this, folks. 5 and 6 here. Not only is his DNA from both a screwdriver and a forearm impression, guys, this is open and shut. This is as open and shut as it gets. It's not even going to be hard. He's going to take a plea. There has to be. There's no way that he's going to take this to trial. It's ridiculous. Okay, so the forearm impression comes from when you're in a prone position with a sniper rifle. And it's the non-dominant, the non-shooting hand, right? Pressed against the ground. Okay? The beauty of this is that he had even the towel might not have helped him too much, but he had a towel. He could have folded it over a couple times and put it on the ground and then put his forearm there. It's just, and then worn, a non-permeable layer, like a Tyvek suit under his clothing or something. So there's no sweat transfer. So he leaves the DNA on a screwdriver, which I'm sure they're going to link from particle science. So you could take metals and, to the screws on the firearm. Because every time you use a Phillips head screwdriver, you're shaving a little metal off, right? And some of that metal gets embedded into the grooves of the screwdriver, or sometimes the screwdriver material will transfer to the screws, depending on which material is harder, or whatever it is. You can also match tool marks to things. So if there's any tool marks on the rifles from the screwdriver or anything like that, they can now link the screwdriver to the rifle, which is like 100 yards away from this position. And both of those have his DNA. And then they can take the forearm impression that's on the roof of the building there and DNA test that. So they have him literally with DNA science as an image of a prone sniper who's in possession of the murder weapon. And his DNA is on the trigger. He fired the murder weapon. That it's provable. Okay, so brilliant. Okay, mistake 7. Texted live updates of the assassination aftermath via Discord to Otro personas. Okay. So when you're Tyler Robinson or Captain Otto Robinson, when you're trying to do a crime and get away with it until you die of old age and keep it a secret, you might want to not give everybody running commentary on Discord. You understand how that's insane? Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on here. I think that there's autism spectrum stuff occurring here, guys. That's the only way. That's the only way. There's no possible. How could you be this stupid? Okay. Mistake number 8 was that he previously expressed disdain for Charlie Kirk in public settings with family. So remember this. Entire family, we've already brought them up before. Because they've seen the rifle. He launched into a tirade just, what was it, days before or something? He had dinner going on about, oh, fuck Charlie Kirk, all this crap. So now he was a room full of, at minimum, 2 other people. Minimum 2 other. So let's say a room full of 2 other witnesses he has now previously expressed potential reasoning for a motive for this crime. And those two people have seen the rifle, and those two people have obviously seen him because they gave birth to him. So that takes you back to mistake number 2. No disguise barely concealed his appearance. The photo here, Capturado, on the right, not the one on the left, because obviously that came later. The one on the right, and just to not make things confusing for the... let's see, what the fuck? I just want to Capturado. There we go. So this photo right here was one of the most famous circulated photos in the world that day. This was on everybody's news feed right here in the world, basically. It seemed. Everybody was talking about it. International media, different everything. Even people in other countries were complaining about America and its guns again. Because they too had seen this photo. And that looks exactly like the guy on the right. No attempt at all to disguise his appearance. So all the same family members that he's ranting about Charlie Kirk to now, of course, get this on their newsfeed. And then they released the photos of the murder weapon that he failed to retrieve. It doesn't take his mom and Photoshop pasting images of a Mauser 98 onto the guy on the right to go, oh my gosh, that's my son. And then, of course, that's it for... The funny thing is that really Tyler Robinson here was like... He got busted by his parents for this assassination because technically speaking, he could have denied the whole thing until the moon fell down. Like, guys, he could have said, no, it's not me. It just isn't me. And it would have helped him to wear a disguise. In fact, if he had had a wig on, his mom probably never would have thought it was him. If I'm going to do the experiment, I'm going to Photoshop a wig onto Capturado Robinson on the right and put it like cinnamon on it. Just do something. Don't, and then he's not wearing gloves, which of course that goes without saying. But there's certain things he could do to conceal his skin color. He could have altered his skin color. He could have used, some kind of a makeup or just anything, and a wig. Different style sunglasses than he normally wears, and a different kind of hat or no hat, and just the wig, etc., etc. And his parents never would have thought it was him. All it takes is a very little alteration for, especially in a photo. The parents would probably scroll past and go, interesting. Some angry tranny shot Charlie Kirk, and just wouldn't think anything of it. He would have looked like that. He would have looked like a guy in drag or something. Like, he could have done that for sure, and made himself look like a radical. What do they call them? Anyway. Not to take political, I don't care about political sides, but he could have made himself look like a radical domestic terrorist of the leftist-leaning ideologies, in such a way that even though his parents knew that he was on the left, they would have been like, "Oh, look, an angry tranny shot Charlie Kirk," and they would have scrolled past the image. Never thought it. So this guy is completely insane, or rather, stupid. And then mistake number 9 is that he confessed within 33 hours. So that's ultimately... Oh, I should have put the logo on the way top here. Ultimately, what we see here, guys, is that this guy had no chance of getting away with this for the rest of his life. No chance at all. Every single thing that you could ever do carelessly in a murder, he did that. It opens up more room for curiosity as to what the hell is Cash Paddle doing, you guys? This is... And it just reflects on him. I've met FBI agents. There's a lot of smart FBI agents, but they're working with the state of their agency. So, if your director is completely incompetent, like Cash Paddle is, that's going to trickle down on an investigative level. And unfortunately, as much as CNN wants you to believe that the NSA can read all your texts and do everything you're doing and facial recognition and blah, 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 obviously they can't. Otherwise, they wouldn't have required a tip from Tyler Robinson's mom. So, now, of course, it wasn't a tip. It was mom went to kid. Dad was a little more skeptical at first, and then he looked at the rifle that had been released to the world's media, the photos of the murder weapon that he attempted to retrieve but failed to retrieve. And then he kind of went, oh, yeah, I think that might be him. And then they went to the kid. The dad specifically went to the kid, or they called him or whatever. He said he was homesick that day, so he doesn't even provide an alibi, because not only was he not homesick, but someone else lives with him. And they would be like, no, he wasn't home that day. Especially if they didn't know why they were being asked. Because, like, people are more prone to complicate or screw up your alibi if they don't know why they're lying for you. So if investigators showed up before the roommate knew that Robinson was a suspect for the offender, they could get, hey, was he home that day? We're investigating something else. Anything else. Just a trivial bullshit. And then the roommate might be so stupid, investigators often run into this, where you go, oh yeah, he wasn't here. And then they go to Tyler Robinson and say, where were you on September 10th? He goes, I was homesick. And they go, oh really? Because we talked to your roommate. No, you weren't. So screwed. And then he doesn't have a backup. So he has no alibi. And then the dad went to him, and instead of just denying it until the moon fell down, which is really what it's the only hope that he had, that's the only thing he could have done in that position, is just deny. Nope, it's not me. Just a guy who looks like me. There's 8 billion Otro personas in the world. It's just one of them. I know he looks just like me. Isn't that weird? I think it's weird. But no, I was home. I was here or there that day. And then you have an alibi that you can prove, or appear to prove, using false evidence. Okay. Where are we going? So, okay. If facial recognition is so gangster thug, and if the CIA and the NSA can watch and do everything that you do, and they know how many times you hit your vape yesterday, and all that shit, about all your searches, then why was Tyler Robinson's photo on the front page of the New York Times for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours before anyone knew it was him? You'll notice the deafening silence of the NSA, guys. They don't have an answer for that. What is their answer for that? That's a scary question for the NSA. Because they spent a lot of time, effort, and energy, you guys, grooming Edward Snowden into the perfect, disinformation shill for probably years. They spent a lot of energy on Snowden, guys. And they are still invested in him because they haven't drone striked his ass yet. He's over there on Joe Rogan right now. But the NSA doesn't have an answer for that. Because obviously there's interagency communication with federal investigative agencies. They could have sent that photo to the, quote, super spies of the NSA and been like, hey, can you run facial recognition on this with your chat GPTs? And then NSA would be like, oh, no problem. It's Tyler Robinson. He's 22 and he's from Washington, Utah. Okay? But they can't do that because that's science fiction. So really, guys, Edward Snowden is a Star Wars character. And that's why they haven't drone striked him, because he's in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, let's see. Oh, hey, what's up, Mr. JSV? I forgot how I used to check the, I used to actually have him as a moderator, so we're not going to deprive him of that. We're going to return him to his status. And as you guys come up, like, there were a couple people that were really big community members and contributors to this channel when I was allowed to live stream. And as those people come back into the chat and stuff, if they had a moderator status and I remember it, I will reinstate that. Because over here in the channel of the most banned prowler online, there is a sense of appreciation for that community in such a way that you don't lose your moderator status just because a bunch of Dale Hillians came along and complained. It's not your guys' fault. Okay. I'm sure there's more stuff, too, of why this guy wouldn't have got away with this. So it takes us back to this comment. He only got caught because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He got caught because he couldn't, sure. Or at least partially. That was a major contributing factor. But it's not the only reason that got him caught. Because, see, eventually what would have happened is, well, do you have a DNA match? They don't need one anymore. Now you can just do IgG and just find out who his cousins are because of what they found on the trigger. They just swab the trigger with a Q-tip and they tell you what your cousin's middle name is. I swear to God, it's real. So, that's all they have to do. Now, of course, there's a bunch of other evidence that's going to be used by the prosecutor to make sure that Tyler Robinson never sees the light of day again and possibly gets executed. My guess is what's going to happen is he's going to take some sort of a plea from Utah, and they're going to spare him the death penalty. They're going to give him life without parole. But the federal government is going to come along with a vengeance afterward, and they're going to press their own federal charges on Robinson. And those are going to be death penalty charges, and they're not going to offer him a plea. This is what you see happening with the a lot of the mass shooters from several years ago, like the where's that place? Charleston, North Carolina, whatever. There's a Charleston shooter and different school shooters and stuff. The state gave them life without parole for 20 murder sentences or whatever to be run consecutively. So one life sentence, then another one starts, and another one starts. So you never get out. But then the feds came along afterward and began prosecuting these individuals with federal death penalty charges. So as scary as that sounds for Captorado, there is a reason why you're not supposed to snipe people's dads, you degenerate. And what sympathies are we supposed to have? The whole thing is tragic. It's tragic for the Kirk family, and it's tragic for Robinson's family, and him, and everybody involved. But don't do that, okay? And then you won't have these problems. Just don't snipe people's dads in public. Or anyone. But that to be rhetorically effective, we can add additional descriptors and dramatic verbiage. So he definitely would have been apprehended. We really need to figure out what's going on with Cash Paddle, guys. It's important now. Because now this is bad look for the U.S. right now. And the NSA needs to address what I said about facial recognition. They need to have a good excuse ready. My guess, let me help the NSA here, okay? They might hire me for this one. Guys, all that you have to say, don't say nothing. Don't be silent about this, because then it looks really bad, okay? You go on the press as the trials come, and you have your own Operation Mockingbird type character, an Anderson Cooper or a Walter Cronkite or something like that, some guy who works for the intelligence agencies. And he's interviewing a intelligence analyst or somebody from the NSA or the CIA, and he says, well, how come you guys weren't able to run the facial recognition on these images and determine the identity of the offender? And I say, what you tell them is that we were in the process of doing that, but our archives in our database are so large that in order to effectively run that scan and then verify it with additional scans for evidentiary purposes, it takes approximately 48 to 72 hours, and then we can gather and prepare that data for a prosecution. That way, it looks like you still have your leak shit, but you have a reason why it wasn't utilized in that period. Now, of course, we all know that ChatGPT is instant, So this lie would not work for most people, or for some people, but it would probably work for most of the world. And it would give them a counter argument. So if people say, well, how come that isn't? And they go, well, they did, but it just takes a little bit longer. It takes 2 or 3 days. What's the big deal about that? It's so quick. It's only 2 or 3 days. Calm down. Next time we'll do it. But we can see that they can't do that shit because they would have done it in 2013 with the Boston Bombers. They would have done it with Charlie. It's the same shit. But you just have to have an excuse prepared, and you guys got to offer up that excuse by making it look like someone else asked you it. Otherwise, going forward, now everybody's going to know that the government can't do any of that stuff that they claim they can do. And it looks bad for Edward Snowden and Joe Rogan, who miraculously wasn't additionally drone striked when he brought a domestic terrorist on his channel. Go figure. But we have to figure out what Cash Paddle's, specifically Cash Paddle, what is his problem? I want to find you guys the tweet. It's so fucking crazy. Let's find it. Cash Paddle tweets arrest of Kirk Shooter. There we go. I like how it's not dated. Okay, there we go. Cool. All right, ready for this, you guys? I would like to put this on screen, but then it's just an extra step. So should I just read it to you? FBI Director Cash Paddle on September 10th, 2025 at 5:21 p.m. Don't know the time zone there, but my guess is that's Eastern, just because I think I remember this happening in the early afternoon, or like in the afternoon. But there was so much happening that day, and just so many quick updates that we were getting, and I was refreshing constantly, like every couple minutes, that it's hard to really know for sure like what time of day I saw this particular tweet. But I saw this right when it happened. The subject for the horrific shooting today that took the life of Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Thank you to the local and state authorities in Utah for your partnership with @FBI. We will provide updates when able. I'll read you guys the timestamp again because that was 5:21 p.m. either Eastern or whatever time it was. So if it's Eastern Standard Time, it's even worse because it was 2 p.m. in the West Coast. And maybe Utah's, I don't know if they're any time ahead. I don't think so. Can't remember for sure. But it's not much. It's not 3 hours. So this is either at 2:30 in the afternoon, basically, or at 5. Either way, it's bad for him because we know now that Tyler Robinson was not in custody of the government until about 10:30 or 11 o'clock that same night. So 6 hours before they captured him, Cash Paddle was telling the world that they had captured him. And the really, really messed up part there is that Cash Paddle had personally, with his own eyes, seen the CCTV photos in high resolution of Tyler Robinson ascending the staircase to the sniper's nest. So he knows what the offender looks like. There's no chance in my mind that the guy that they apprehended and were interrogating that day, or the guy that they had in custody at that time, according to Paddle, was a dead ringer doppelganger of Tyler Robinson. So what in the heck? Whoops. What in the heck was Cash Paddle even talking about at that time? Not sure, but that's a pretty major mistake to make. Let me explain to you how that can jeopardize an entire investigation. What if Tyler Robinson's mom and dad saw Paddle's tweet, but they didn't see the surveillance photos? Now, the odds are pretty low that they wouldn't see those photos at all, but for commentario's sake, what if they saw his tweet before they saw the CCTV photos? Now, the very people who are responsible for recognizing the offender would go, oh, they captured the offender. Okay. And just go back to their lives. The DNA and the genealogy still would have captured Robinson. But maybe it would have slowed stuff down. In the case of Bryan Kohberger, investigative genealogy took like 6 weeks, I think, which is really fast, actually. From the time that they found the button snap DNA to the time that they apprehended him in Pennsylvania, it was like, 6 weeks or something. And that would have got captured Robinson too. But Cash Paddle, you can't. How can you even jump the gun that majorly? Like, how are you the director of the FBI? You can't even look at a picture. If you can't compare the picture of Tyler Robinson that we all saw in fucking 4K that day to the guy that you're supposedly interrogating and realize that it's not the same guy, you shouldn't be the director of the FBI. And not only that, but if you would take very, very unconfirmed information, clearly extremely unconfirmed information, didn't wait for a DNA match, didn't wait for anything, didn't wait for fingerprints, didn't wait for anything. If you can't wait for that information or establish that information before you announce to the world that you captured him and thus possibly prevent witnesses or informers from coming forward, you shouldn't be the director of the FBI. Because that incompetence not only jeopardizes your agency's ability to function, it trickles down on an investigative level to the lowest levels, where politics does often affect the course of investigations, and it jeopardizes the success of extremely high-profile and important investigations like this was, and it makes you look so bad in the eyes of the world and our potential adversaries that they're going to look at that and go, oh, we can bomb the shit out of those people because they can't even they have no competence. So now you've put danger to American lives by acting this way, Cash Battle. How are you the director of the FBI? That's a serious problem, guys. This guy needs to be ousted. Congress needs to have some hearings. Whoever comes to different people, he should be indicted for this. I know it's extreme, but guys, interfering with a federal investigation is a serious crime. You can't jeopardize the investigation into an assassination and just be like, oops, I tweeted too early. You should be prosecuted for doing that, but they're not going to do that. But this is not safe to have this guy as the head of the FBI. It's crazy. Fortunately, those state investigators are often really good, and they would have found him. Everybody would have found him. He's not hard to find, Robinson. I don't know if he was really expecting to get away with this. But he should have just told everybody he wasn't trying to, because even if he was, and you're trying to make a political point, but now you look so dumb, it's unbelievable. It's like, who wants to listen to your political point? You can't even wear gloves. And this guy, too, he's going to plead not guilty at the arraignment, didn't he? He must have, obviously, otherwise this would all be over. It's another Mangione. It's this guy thinks he's a revolutionary badass, but then as soon as he has to take accountability for his supposed acts of revolution, he cries and pleads not guilty. It's the same shit Mangione did. Now Mangione has people donating to him. He's a grifter. He's a hero. He's a grifter who's too scared to admit what he did. That's not revolutionary at all. You guys think George Washington would have pled not guilty at the... They signed the Declaration of Independence in their legal true names. And I'm not saying that they're great people who did all great. I mean, there's problems on every side, especially it's a war, people getting shot. There's nothing good about that on any side. But at least that's why people are like, oh, those guys are revolutionary founding fathers and and badasses, and they were willing to commit martyrdom for their, or to be martyrs for their cause. Even ISIS has more integrity than Mangione. How is that a hero? Why is he? Both, like, all these guys, dude, and Mangione is really being glorified by the media, whether they expressly state it or not. They act it by putting him on the covers of magazines and all this stuff, because you're glorifying these assassins, these really just homicide offenders, but they're too scared to actually stand by whatever cause you claim they represent. And they'll still throw you all under the bus, collect all your donation money, plead not guilty, and then get sentenced and convicted. And it's like, oh my god, I got robbed by Mangione. You're all surprised. And the healthcare industry they're such thieves. And maybe they are. But, well, so are you, Mangione. You need a manifesto written about your smoked out ass. Degenerate. It's the same with all these guys. We're not completely out of time, but getting there. And what I also want to state, guys, is, like, I know that my criticisms of Tyler Robinson, or Capturado Robinson, have kind of provided some inadvertent educational information to individuals, but you can't account for everything. Gian Quester talked about this in his investigation of the original Night Stalker. He said, you can account for all this stuff. And also Matthew Cox says this. Is a very high-level fraudster, mortgage fraud, who was number one on the Secret Service most wanted list for a period of time. He runs a YouTube channel, Inside True Crime with Matthew B. Cox. Funny guy, but total sociopathic lunatic. Still, I think the only thing that keeps Matt Cox from reoffending at crimes is being afraid he's going to get caught because he's famous now. I think there's some moral and spiritual transformation, but largely, if Matt Cox felt he could get away with mortgage fraud again, he'd probably do it. And he says the same thing, that you can account for 100 variables, and you can gloves and wig and blah, 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 blah. But there's always going to be that one little thing that screws you over eventually. And for some folks, it happens quickly, and then others, it happens 40 years later, like the EAR. Think about it. EAR is the prime example of someone who accounts for every little thing and makes his capture almost impossible. He almost got away with it if it wasn't for that meddling Paul Holes, and he couldn't account for the DNA coming along to that point. So there's always something you can't account for. So if you think that you listen to this video, go, oh, now I can go snipe somebody, you can't. And you will also be Capturado. And I will put your picture on here, and your first name will also get changed to Capturado. And then we'll depend on last names after that. Because right now, if Capturado Robinson, it's already starting to flow easily, so it's good. Capturado Mangione. See, the last names make it really easy to differentiate what's going on. Whoops. Okay, I think we've pretty thoroughly covered this comment. My reply was that his capture was inevitable. He simply left far too much forensic evidence and too excessive a trail to have gotten away with this for very long. I suspect the only reason it took them 33 hours at all is because the FBI's handling of this case was shockingly incompetent. And it was. Now, maybe I'm being incendiary and I'm giving a little too much blame on the FBI. It might have simply taken too long. It might have simply taken 30 hours before his parents were like, what the fuck? But the FBI clearly was running around in circles for a little bit. which they wouldn't have done if Edward Snowden was telling the truth, which he wasn't. Guys, there's no such thing as the PRISM program. It's totally fake and gay, actually. It's fake and gay. Undoubtedly. I am convinced of that. It's fake and gay. There's no PRISM program. And maybe it was a larger effort that caused these investigative failures across numerous agencies, but the FBI did such a terrible job that they probably did delay Utah state law enforcement from capturing this guy earlier than they did. I mean, his fingerprints have to be on the rifle. The reason I know that is because, one, he's seen ascending the stairs to the sniper position with no gloves on, but two, he also told his roommate, I hope I can get to the rifle and hopefully they don't find fingerprints. If he's worried about fingerprints, then he wasn't wearing gloves when he fired the shot. So not only will he flunk a GSR test for gunshot residue, he would also get captured if he's ever had his fingerprints on file anywhere. And I think I seem to remember giving my thumbprint at the DMV, but then I never remember doing that again. So I'm not sure if that's like normal, or maybe they were just they were trying to live up to the image that Ed Snowden had given them that day. But for some reason, I remember giving a thumbprint at the DMV, and if I did, then I think they can also run that to find Tyler Robinson. His thumb could hold a rifle. Where's your thumb? It's on a non-porous surface capable of retaining and producing fingerprints when dusted. So, and it's specifically the thumbprint, for sure. So he's worried about, oh, he's gonna lift my fingerprint. His index fingerprint is probably on the bolt. And the trigger. His palm print is probably on the rifle grip, and the other fingerprints are probably on the foregrip of the rifle too, on the stock. So this stock probably looks like the blackness of space when it's dusted with fingerprints. It's probably everywhere. In fact, you probably have overlapping prints. Is going to complicate things. But almost certainly they're going to be able to get fresh fingerprints from that rifle. So just maybe if Utah had been not distracted by Cash Paddle's incompetence, they might have been able to dust for those prints faster and make the identification even sooner. But because they were busy doing damage control, because Cash Paddle couldn't stop tweeting, then that didn't happen. Okay, basically time to close out, folks, but I hope this is a lesson for people that this isn't 1963 anymore, and even if it was, they still captured Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, I don't really think that he did that, but you get the idea. And that was before DNA. So if you think you're gonna, that's kind of cool. I could do that. If you think you're gonna snipe Charlie Kirk and get away with it, I highly recommend that you research Joseph DeAngelo, because he did almost everything nominally to not get caught, except he still got caught. And almost is a strong word there, or it wasn't used strongly enough. Rather, it should be a strong word there, because there were some loopholes, and he depended on some of the failure of investigative agencies to communicate, which would almost be a good excuse for the NSA to use right now for the whole facial recognition thing, except we know that's not true, and the photos were made public. So the FBI and the NSA were definitely benefactors of open lines of communication between their offices that day, because it's 2025 and not 1977, and they didn't run the facial recognition, and they have no clue who Captain Rod Robinson is. So you guys have to understand, this is a really, it's a dark day for the feds in this case. It doesn't look good, but fortunately, those Mormon cops in Utah almost certainly would have also capturadoed Robinson. And most of the time, state agencies do a good job. They do a way better job. And every time the feds come in, they just screw everything up because they're so obsessed with their own prosecutorial success rate that they just fail. And then they just take credit for everyone else's work. Like the state cops will come along and run the genealogy. And then the FBI's like, we did a great job. They did it this time. I swear, you guys, they did that this time. Look at this. This is hilarious too. Look at what Cash Paddle said, guys. And he thinks that oh my gosh. We're not falling for this, Cash Paddle. Historic progress. Charlie Kirk. Watch this. He thinks we're believing this shit. Which is additional reasons why he shouldn't be the director of the FBI. Cash Paddle himself, never one to be a man of few words, said on September 13th, 2025, in 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. His parents did. You almost let him get away with it. Not that historic, Cash. So, that's how the feds operate. It seems now. At least on the bureaucratic level, like on the public-facing level. Not the individual agents. The individual agents are fairly effective. But they move really slowly, and they require, their evidence is usually, different, it seems, than the state police. It's, different types of evidence. And the feds are like, look, we've prepared this 47,000-page document about his cell tower records. And then the cops are like, we found his trigger DNA on the trigger. So it's just a different approach, it seems. But then Cash Paddle will come out and just claim credit. And I think that we should have, this should be a meme or something, just really make fun of him. I don't know how you deliver it, how you create it, but if anyone can come up with the idea and execute it, where it's somebody does something and then Cash Paddle comes along and claims that he made historic progress at achieving something, like the moon landings or something. The Onion could run a news article of Cash Paddle saying we've made historic progress landing on the moon. It's you weren't even born. He reminds me of those people who are we went to the moon. You went there? Okay, time to leave, everyone. Welcome back to the New Cooks live stream. And always remember, siempre recuerdas, I think. No ransack adoring and otro